Ever wonder why some of the funniest comedians face such personal struggles? Well, it turns out that loneliness plays a significant role in their professional lives. And we're not just talking about their personal struggles, we're diving deep into their careers as well. Join us on our journey through the 10 worst alcoholics in comedy history, who, despite their own battles and despair, put on a brave face to make us all laugh. Let's get started. Number 10. Chris Farley. You know him from his uproarious time on Saturday Night Live and his hilarious 90s movies like Tommy Boy. But there's so much more to his story than just laughter and fame. Chris Farley was undeniably talented, but he also battled some serious demons throughout his life. He sought treatment for drug abuse and obesity a staggering 17 times. That's how much he struggled with these issues. He became such a regular at the Hazelden Rehab Center that one of his friends even joked they should have named a wing after him. Despite being wildly popular and loved by fans all over the world, Farley couldn't escape his own self-loathing. He believed that his comedy career was nothing more than an ongoing fat guy falls down shtick. It's heartbreaking to think that someone so gifted and adored by millions could feel that way about themselves. In December 1997, things took a turn for the worse. Farley reportedly went on a massive 4-day drug and alcohol bender. And tragically, on December 18, 1997, he passed away at the young age of 33 due to an accidental overdose of cocaine and morphine. It was a devastating loss for the comedy community and for all of his fans. Despite his struggles and untimely death, Chris Farley's talent and impact on comedy were undeniable. In August 2005, he was posthumously honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a fitting tribute to a man who brought so much joy and laughter to so many. Farley once said, quote, "Let's just say I had my share of fun. I worry about talking about this because I worry about kids who might think, whoa, man, that's cool. Because in some ways, that's what I did with my hero, BELUSH. I thought that this is what you have to do to be cool. But all that shit does is kill someone. It is a demon that must be snuffed out. It is the end." Number 9. Artie Lange. Let's talk about Artie Lange, the no-holds-barred, foul-mouthed sidekick on Howard Stern's radio show. Now, Artie was undeniably hilarious, but he also struggled with some serious demons that sent him spiraling out of control. His addictions to alcohol, heroin, cocaine, and even gambling took a toll on his life and career. Howard Stern eventually had to let him go because Artie kept missing work, falling asleep during tapings, and even yelling at the guests. It was all getting too much for him to handle. In January 2010, Artie hit rock bottom and attempted suicide. Can you imagine? He chugged bleach, stabbed himself in the stomach 9 times, and then slit his wrists. It was a dark and desperate time for him, and he spent the next 8 months in a psych ward trying to find a way to heal. Now, let's give credit where it's due. Artie has shown real dedication to his sobriety. Despite acknowledging 2 relapses in the last 4 years, he's committed to attending meetings and staying on track. Writing has become a saving grace for him, and he loves doing it sober. As he said, quote, "I love writing sober. I think more clearly and have better references in my act now because I remember more. It's a million times better than the romantic thought that you need to be using something in order to write. Some people might be able to get away with that, but I think most of us need to have a clear head," end quote. But it wasn't an easy journey. Back in 1997, Artie landed in rehab after getting arrested for cocaine possession. Later on, he struggled with heroin abuse and had to return to rehab in 2008. As he stated at the time, quote, "I don't think I can keep doing what I'm doing right now as far as my health is concerned. The lifestyle I'm leading is brutally bad. I'm fatter than I've ever been. It's depressing," end quote. In 2010, addicted to heroin and gambling, he attempted to take his life. In 2013, Artie co-wrote a book called Crash and Burn, where he poured his heart out about his downward spiral. He wrote, quote, "All I can say is that you only realize how big your mountain is once you're laying motionless, helpless and hopeless in the valley below. No one goes there on purpose, if you get what I'm saying, because the only way to find your personal low is to slip and roll down that mountain of yours, straight through to the bottom, no holds barred. Only when you're in that ditch, lying there in the muddy runoff you've made of your life, gazing up at the peak you fell from, do you truly know how small you are and understand how tall you used to be." End quote. In 2018, things took another rough turn when ARTIE was jailed for testing positive for cocaine and violating his probation. But you know what? Even with all the setbacks, he's still pushing forward, trying to better himself every day. Number 8. Jane Lynch. Jane Lynch, the fabulous star from Glee. Did you know she had her own battles with alcohol before finding solace in Alcoholics Anonymous? Back in January 1992, when Jane was just 31 years old, she attended her first AA meeting. And let me tell you, she hasn't looked back since. In her memoir called Happy Accidents, she poured her heart out about her experiences in AA and the kinship she felt with others going through the same journey. But you know what's interesting? Jane felt a bit embarrassed because she didn't have the most severe drinking problem compared to some others in the meetings. Quote, "In AA, there would be one dramatic story after another, with people losing everything to drugs and booze. And here I was with my Miller Lite and morning hangovers and some occasional unremembered vomit in the bathroom. Some of these stories I heard in the rooms of AA were so endless, horrible, and tragic that I would have to stop myself from screaming at them. At what point do you hit bottom? I guess what I'm saying is, when I stopped, I had reached my limit. I knew that my mind, body, and spirit had just had it." End quote. And honestly, that's what matters. Recognizing when you've reached your limit and have decided to make a change. AA became her lifeline, her support system, and it helped her turn her life around. You know, sometimes when we compare our struggles to others, it's easy to feel like our problems aren't big enough to deserve help. But that's not true. We all have our battles, big or small, and seeking help is a courageous step no matter what. Number 7. Craig Ferguson. Ever heard of Craig Ferguson? He's a Scottish TV personality, and let me tell you, his life has been a roller coaster ride. Back when Craig was just 14 years old, he experienced his first blackout due to alcohol. Can you imagine that? Such a young age and already dealing with the effects of booze. As the years went by, alcohol started wreaking havoc in Craig's life. It didn't just mess up his career, but even took a toll on his marriage. Things got so bad that he hit rock bottom on Christmas morning 1991. He felt so overwhelmed and lost that he actually planned to end his life. But guess what? Fate had a different plan for him. While sitting in a bar, contemplating everything, a friend stepped in and talked him out of it. It's like something out of a movie, right? Within 3 months, Craig made a life-changing decision. He decided to quit drinking for good. Can you believe it? From rock bottom to turning his life around in such a short time. He packed his bags and moved to the US to start fresh. And you know what? He worked his butt off and became a well-known and respected TV celebrity. That's the kind of comeback story we all love to hear. In 2007, during an opening monologue on The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson, he publicly acknowledged his sobriety, saying, quote, "Alcohol ruined me financially and morally, broke my heart and the hearts of too many others. Even though it did this to me and it almost killed me and I haven't touched a drop of it in 17 years, sometimes I wonder if I could get away with drinking some now. I totally subscribe to the notion that alcoholism is a mental disease because thinking like that is clearly insane." End quote. But you know what's truly inspiring? Despite all the struggles, he hasn't touched a drop of alcohol in 17 years. Number 6. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen. Now this guy's life has been like a roller coaster ride full of twists and turns. You know, I can't help but remember that Robin Williams joke about the functioning alcoholic. Quote, "Some people say, Robin, I'm a functioning alcoholic," which is, you can be one. It's like being a paraplegic lap dancer. You can do it, just not as well as the others, really." End quote. And guess what? Charlie Sheen is like the real-life version of that. He tried to keep it together, but addiction caught up with him eventually. Remember when Ricky Gervais introduced him at the 2011 Golden Globes? He said, quote, "It's going to be a night of partying and heavy drinking," or as Charlie Sheen calls it, breakfast. Wow, so let's get this straight. So what he did was, he picked up a porn star, paid her to have dinner with him, introduced her to his ex-wife, as you do, went to a hotel, got drunk, got naked, crashed the place while she was locked in a cupboard, and that was a Monday. What does he do on New Year's Eve? End quote. You probably know him best from 2.5 Men, right? But things started going south when he got sacked by the producers for his crazy behavior. And let me tell you, his reaction wasn't exactly the best way to win them back. He went on this wild online rant, talking about himself like he's some kind of poetic messiah or something. Not the way to get your job back, buddy. But hey, let's not forget that Charlie's struggles with addiction go way back. In 1990, he accidentally shot his fiancée in the arm. And his divorce from Denise Richards in 2005 cited drug and alcohol abuse, along with threats of violence. The first time he was sentenced to rehab was in 2010 after he assaulted his then-wife Brooke Mueller during an argument on Christmas Day the year before, who also placed a restraining order on him. They divorced in 2011. Seems like addiction might run in the family, too. His father, Martin Sheen, has battled alcoholism, too. You might remember him in Apocalypse Now, where he played Captain Benjamin L. Willard. And guess what? The drunkenness in that movie was all too real because it was filmed on his actual birthday. But the good news is that Charlie Sheen is currently in recovery. He has completed rehab and is attending AA meetings regularly, despite being openly critical of them in the past. Number 5. Richard Pryor. Now here's a comedian who left a lasting impact on the world of stand-up comedy. He broke barriers and paved the way for many black comedians to make it big in mainstream culture. But behind all the laughter, Pryor struggled with some serious demons. Born in Peoria, Illinois, he had a tough start in life with his family running a brothel. Not exactly the best environment to grow up in, right? After a stint in the U.S. Army, he decided to escape that life and try his luck as a stand-up comic in New York. And boy, did he make it big. He starred alongside Diana Ross in the film Lady Sings the Blues and had a successful career in comedy. But fame and success came at a price. Pryor battled with drug addiction, especially cocaine. He once famously joked, quote, "Sprinkle my ashes in about 2 pounds of cocaine, then snort me up." End quote. Dark humor, right? When he returned from Africa in 1979, he vowed never to use the N-word again, despite his stand-up shows and himself being notorious for using it. One more quote, "I couldn't stop. I put the pipe down, it jumped back in my hand." End quote. But underneath all the jokes, Pryor carried a lot of pain and sensitivity from his childhood. He used alcohol and drugs, especially cocaine, to cope with memories of his troubled past, including abuse he suffered from a neighbor during his time at the brothel. In 1980, things took a dangerous turn when he accidentally set himself on fire while freebasing cocaine. That was a near-death experience that shocked everyone. He had his fair share of health issues too, including multiple sclerosis and heart problems. He was, however, a notorious coke addict. At 65, he died of a heart attack after being diagnosed with the awful wasting disease, multiple sclerosis, and a serious heart scare. Despite it all, Pryor continued to make people laugh with his irreverent and honest comedy. Pryor once said on stage in 1992, quote, "Is there a doctor in the audience? No, I'm serious. I want to know if there's a doctor here." End quote. After some nervous laughter from the audience, a hand finally went up. Pryor then said, quote, "Doctor, I need to know one thing. What the F is MS?" End quote. If you want to delve deeper into Pryor's life, you should definitely check out his autobiography, Pryor Convictions and Other Life Sentences. It's entertaining and a little bit scary, but it gives you a glimpse into the chaotic life of this iconic comedian. Number 4. Robin Williams. A comedic legend with a heart of gold. Despite his laughter, he struggled with addiction. Early on in his career, he abused cocaine and alcohol, just like his buddy John Belushi. But when Belushi tragically died of a cocaine and heroin overdose in 1982, that was a wake-up call for Robin. He decided to quit drugs, but alcohol continued to be a problem for him. He went to rehab for alcoholism in 2006 and again in 2014. Williams was always honest about his battles with addiction, even incorporating them into his stand-up routines. He once said, quote, "Cocaine for me was a place to hide. Most people get hyper on coke. It slowed me down. It's not caused by anything, it's just there. It waits. It lays in wait for the time when you think, it's fine now, I'm okay. Then the next thing you know, it's not okay. Then you realize, where am I? I didn't realize I was in Cleveland." In fact, Belushi and Williams had been partying the night before the Chateau Marmont overdose, and Williams later said of Belushi's death, quote, "It sobered the out of me." Later in life, he faced another devastating blow when he was misdiagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Turns out he was suffering from diffuse Lewy body dementia, LBD, a condition that affected his thinking, movement, behavior, and mood. His depression worsened, and the torment he experienced became unbearable. As he said, quote, "I went to rehab in wine country just to keep my options open. Quote, when I was growing up, they used to say, 'Robin, drugs can kill you.' Now that I'm 58, my doctor's telling me, 'Robin, you need drugs to live.' I realize now that my doctor is also my dealer." End quote. On August 11, 2014, the world lost Robin Williams when he tragically took his own life. His wife, Susan Schneider, later revealed the extent of his suffering, including paranoia, delusions, anxiety, and more. It was heart-wrenching to hear what he had gone through. She said, quote, "Robin was losing his mind, and he was aware of it. He kept saying, 'I just want to reboot my brain.'" End quote. Despite his struggles, Robin Williams had a way of making us laugh like no one else. He was open about his ups and downs, and he never shied away from the truth. He candidly admitted that while he had had setbacks with alcohol, he never returned to using cocaine because, as he put it, quote, "No, cocaine, paranoid and impotent, what fun. There was no bit of me thinking, ooh, let's go back to that. Useless conversations until midnight. Waking up at dawn feeling like a vampire on a day pass. No." End quote. Number 3. John Belushi. The wild and talented comedian brought us so many laughs with his roles in The Blues Brothers and Animal House. But tragically, his life was cut short by his struggles with drugs and alcohol. On March 5, 1982, he was found dead in a bungalow at Chateau Marmont in Los Angeles. The cause of death was a lethal mix of cocaine and heroin, a deadly cocktail known as a speedball. He was just 33 years old, and his fans were in shock. Even though he had reached great success with Saturday Night Live and his movie roles, Belushi's life was spiraling out of control. He was abusing alcohol and drugs regularly, and it took a toll on his physical and mental health. Author Sean Levy later described him as, quote, "sweaty, flabby, edgy, pale, disheveled, worn to a stump at 33." End quote. It's heartbreaking to imagine someone with so much talent and potential in such a dire state. In fact, during the filming of The Blues Brothers, there was an unofficial budget for cocaine. Belushi's co-star Dan Aykroyd revealed in an interview that they all used cocaine during night shoots. But for Belushi, it became more than just a party favor. It was a way to escape his troubles and feel invincible. He said, quote, "Everyone did it, including me. Never to excess, and not ever to where I wanted to buy it or have it. But John, he just loved what it did. It sort of brought him alive at night. That superpower feeling where you start to talk and converse and figure you can solve all the world's problems." End quote. People close to him, including his wife Judy, knew that he battled severe depression. His drug abuse may have been an attempt to numb the pain and find some relief, but in the end, the drugs took a heavy toll on his body. The autopsy report showed the devastating effects of his addiction. His body was filled with enough drugs to kill even a healthy person. The report showed that he was obese, had an enlarged liver, lungs that were distended, and a swollen brain, among other medical conditions. It was a heartbreaking end to the life of a comedic genius. Number 2. Graham Chapman. Graham Chapman may not be a household name like some other comedians, but you've definitely heard of his work if you're a fan of Monty Python or movies like The Life of Brian. Chapman was a brilliant comedian and writer, but he also had a darker side, a struggle with alcoholism that haunted him for many years. From his college days, Chapman turned to alcohol as a way to cope with the world. He would drink every day, and it got so bad that he even forgot his own material, which was a big wake-up call for him. In 1977, he gave a disastrous interview to the New Musical Express magazine in the UK while drunk, and that's when he finally realized he needed help. He sought treatment for his alcoholism and managed to overcome it, but unfortunately that wasn't the end of his struggles. In 1989, Chapman lost his battle with cancer and passed away. His comedic genius will always be remembered, but his private life was much more complex. Despite his calm, pipe-smoking persona on screen, Chapman led a life of wild sexual experimentation and shocking behavior. One of the most disturbing aspects of his life was his relationship with a 13-year-old runaway boy. Chapman claimed that the boy was his adopted son and managed to convince the police of it. However, many of Chapman's friends believed that the relationship was sexual. The boy eventually went on to become an alcoholic as well. Number 1. Tony Hancock. Tony Hancock was a British comedian best known for his iconic series, Hancock's Half Hour, which aired on radio and TV from 1954 to 1961. While he brought laughter to millions, behind the scenes he was struggling with his own personal demons, particularly alcoholism. Famous for his difficult personality, Hancock pushed away his comedy partner Sid James and even clashed with his own scriptwriters. As the years went by, his self-destructive tendencies became more apparent, and he found himself on a downward spiral. In a candid interview for the BBC's Face to Face, Hancock openly expressed his self-critical nature and inability to cope with himself. The experience of that interview seemed to deeply affect him, leaving a lasting mark on his already fragile mental state. Despite his professional success, Hancock's personal life was far from stable. He couldn't find solace in love and had messy and chaotic relationships. His romantic troubles added to the complexities of his troubled mind. Sadly, the comedy genius of his era couldn't find a way to overcome his demons, and in 1968 he tragically took his own life. He combined pills and vodka, leaving behind a simple but haunting suicide note. Quote, "Things went wrong too many times." End quote. Thank you for joining us on this fascinating journey into the lives of comedians. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more fascinating content. See you again soon.